You mentioned Ohio State, another guy that you wrote an article about, Zach Harrison. A lot of strengths. There's potential. You kind of look at it, and you were waiting for him to kind of dominate in college, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, right? I think he had 7.5 sacks over his last 2 years, 4 and then 3.5. And you look at that and you go, those numbers don't jump out at you. But, he's like 6'6". He runs really well, got crazy wingspan and long arms. So I think there's a lot of potential there. I talked to Larry Johnson, the associate head coach, his D-line coach, and he said, we didn't play him in a wide 9 a ton, right? And we all know a wide 9 with Jim Schwartz, where you let the end get way wide, and it really it helps the angle to get to the quarterback. It's usually one-on-one with the tackle. They played him in a lot of 6 technique, and he had a tight end in the way. He just felt like that took away some prime pass rushing opportunities for Harrison, which affected the sack total. And if you watch his highlight film, right, and I'm sure fans saw plenty of Ohio State games, he's forcing fumbles and tipping passes that turn into big plays for other guys. Forced fumble, recovered by somebody else, touchdown. Tip ball, interception, touchdown. There were a lot of plays that Harrison had a hand in. So, he had 33 pressures, which if you combine that with the sack total, doesn't look nearly as questionable as just the sack total alone. So I think there's reason to think he could be a good player. He's powerful with that length and that size. He still needs to work on the bend. He's not going to dip like Myles Garrett does right now. But I think he'd be nice in that mix with Garrett and Obo and Alex Wright, and you could put him inside if you wanted to on third down and let him rush with those big arms and wingspan. So he's a guy that I think will be there in the third round, and I think makes sense because the Browns have a hole at defensive end. They need to add to that pile, and I think they'd have a hard time ignoring a guy with that size and those physical abilities.
Yeah, and to your point, if speed to power is going to be key because it's almost like you're putting the ends in starting blocks and say, all right, get around them. That's basically what Jim Schwartz's system does.
Yeah, and he's got that long arm. He can put it in the chest, come in at that tackle. I think he's good against the run, right? And we talked about the Browns' poor run defense. That matters in who the ends are. And Obo's not the biggest guy, so could they have a mix there where, Harrison plays some out, some end early and downs and then part of that rotation. So, I know the numbers aren't there, but I think it might be a guy we have to look a little bit beyond the numbers.
Yeah, and you also brought up a really good point. I think Jim Schwartz's defensive line will have, much like a wide receiver room, you're going to have guys with different traits and different skill sets, and you're going to look to add all the pieces to build out an entire, so that situationally, okay, this is what we need, that's this guy. You're going to see him rotating in much more so than we have the past several years.
Well, I was just going to say that, Dave. Not only is it traits, it's, I think, more the number's going to be bigger. The rotation's going to be deeper. Maybe Myles Garrett doesn't leave the field that much because he's Myles Garrett, but I think everybody else is going to be in and out like those hockey lines because that's what Schwartz has tended to do with his guys.
Yeah, and you know what? It's worked. So the main thing is it's worked for him.